The world is at a crossroads. A pernicious ideology threatens us. It calls itself progressivism, but its true nature is far more insidious. To give it a precise name, we could call it coercive collectivism, or more simply, Communocracy. It seeks to control every aspect of our lives. It demands conformity and obedience. It silences dissent and punishes individuality. At the heart of this movement is an elitist project known as the Great Reset. This is not merely a conspiracy theory. It is a real and dangerous movement with a malevolent dictatorial agenda. It is being promulgated by powerful globalist consortium of institutions coalescing under the World Economic Forum. These organizations seek to dismantle the existing world order and replace it with a system of global governance. This new world order would be controlled by unelected technocrats. They would dictate economic policy, social norms, and even our personal beliefs. Individual liberty would be sacrificed on the altar of collectivism. The very foundations of Western civilization are under attack. We are witnessing a slow but steady erosion of our freedoms. This is happening through a combination of economic manipulation, social engineering, and outright censorship. The goal is to create a society where people are afraid to speak out and challenge the status quo. This is how totalitarian regimes rise to power. The new globalists are in many ways following a well-worn playbook. First, they create a crisis. This could be a pandemic, a financial crisis, or their favorite, manufactured hysteria over climate change. They then use this crisis to justify their power grab. They present themselves as the only ones who can save us from disaster. They flood Western countries with uncontrolled mass migration from the Third World. This destabilizes our societies and makes it easier to impose their agenda. They promote divisive identity politics. They pit us against each other based on race, religion, and sexual orientation. This prevents us from recognizing and uniting against our common enemy. They monitor and control the flow of information. The mainstream media has become nothing more than a propaganda arm of the globalist elite. They censor dissenting voices while promoting an elite establishment narrative that supports their agenda. Social media giants silence those who dare to question the official narrative. They infiltrate our institutions. Universities, once bastions of free thought, have become echo chambers of leftist ideology. They're now little more than madrasas that promote Marxism rather than jihad. Corporations, driven by greed and a thirst for power, have become willing accomplices in this globalist coup. We must resist this totalitarian creep before it is too late. Hidden away in the secluded Swiss Alps, an organization with a benign name plots the course of global affairs. The World Economic Forum, best known for its annual gathering of the world's elite in Davos, has become synonymous with the push for a great reset. This isn't a conspiracy theory, it's openly discussed in their publications and speeches. They envision a world where national sovereignty is diminished, replaced by global governance. The WEF's founder, Klaus Schwab, speaks with certainty about the future he envisions. He argued that the COVID-19 pandemic provided a narrow window of opportunity to reshape the world. This reset involves a radical transformation of economies, societies, and even individual identities. It's a future where individual liberty takes a back seat to the greater good, as defined by a select few. The WEF shapes the thinking of future leaders. Its Young Global Leaders program brings together promising individuals from various fields. This program has nurtured a network of influential individuals. Alumni include Justin Trudeau, Emmanuel Macron, Angela Merkel, and Mark Carney. Many WEF alumni hold positions in government, raising concerns its influence. Critics argue it places WEF-aligned individuals in key government roles. This influence is evident in policies aligned with the Great Reset agenda. The WEF's ideology is seen in global policies. The speed of policy adoption raises concerns about national sovereignty. The WEF's influence extends beyond its Young Global Leaders program. It courts officials, business leaders, and media personalities. This access shapes the global narrative and builds consensus. The blurring of lines between sectors raises concerns about democratic accountability. The World Economic Forum's growing influence highlights the rise of unelected technocrats shaping global affairs. Organizations like the WHO, IMF, and WTO wield significant power with almost no transparency. They shape health policies, economic regulations, and trade agreements that impact billions. This undermines democracy and concentrates power in a select and unelected few. As global institutions gain power, national sovereignty erodes. To whom are these unelected elites accountable? Certainly not their constituents. The future of global governance and individual liberty depends on the answers. Across the globe, a tide of humanity is on the move. Millions are fleeing poverty, violence, and oppression. Many more seek economic opportunity or perhaps just state benefits from Western countries run by corrupt globalists looking to destabilize society. You decide. The scale and nature of these movements raise profound questions about national sovereignty and social cohesion. We must understand the malevolent and odious forces driving mass migration and its impact on Western societies. Proponents of open borders argue it's a moral imperative to welcome those seeking refuge. Perhaps that has always been true in some cases. But critics argue that mass migration is a form of demographic warfare. They point to instances where governments have used migration to alter the ethnic makeup of their countries and disenfranchise the native population. The demographic transformation of Western societies is happening at an alarming pace. Native-born populations are on the decline while immigration rates soar. Proponents celebrate this as progress, while others view it with apprehension. They fear new arrivals erode the foundations of Western civilization. It is a well-founded fear. Multiculturalism, promoted through policies and education, creates self-censorship. People hesitate to express views on immigration for fear of being labeled racist. Racism is the new heresy, just as in the Middle Ages to merely be accused of it is to be condemned and excommunicated. This chills free speech, silencing concerns about mass migration. The push for multiculturalism always comes at the expense of national unity. It encourages identification with ethnic groups, leading to societal fragmentation. While open borders promise economic benefits, they downplay hidden costs. These costs strain social welfare systems and taxpayers. Migrants struggle to adapt, facing language barriers and limited job prospects. The influx of cheap labor impacts wages and job opportunities for native workers. This leads inevitably to increased poverty and social unrest. Cultural impacts are significant, causing tensions and fears of losing national identity. In the shadows of government, a new breed of power player has emerged, the public-private partnership. These entities, often multinational corporations, have become increasingly intertwined with the functions of the state. The line between public and private spheres has blurred, creating a breeding ground for cronyism and corruption. Critics argue that these partnerships represent a dangerous concentration of power in the hands of unelected entities. It also closely aligns with the original definitions of fascism. The relationship between corporate giants and government agencies has become increasingly cozy. The lines between lobbying and corruption become increasingly blurred as corporate interests gain undue influence over policy decisions. To mask their pursuit of power and profit, these corporate behemoths have become masters of public relations. They cloak their agendas in the language of social justice, environmentalism, and corporate social responsibility. They donate generously to charities, fund awareness campaigns, and align themselves with popular causes, all while carefully crafting a public image of benevolence and concern for the common good. But behind this facade of virtue lies a ruthless pursuit of market dominance and consolidation of power. Their philanthropic endeavors usually serve as tax write-offs and PR stunts designed to deflect criticism and bolster their public image. They co-opt social movements, using their vast resources to shape the narrative and malign dissenting voices. Their version of social responsibility tends to align perfectly with their corporate interests, promoting policies that benefit their bottom line while paying lip service to lofty ideals. They understand the power of language using carefully crafted messaging to manipulate public perception. Terms like sustainability, inclusivity, and equity are bandied about, stripped of their true meaning and repurposed to serve corporate agendas. They present themselves as the solution to the very problems they help create, all while consolidating their control over the global economy and the lives of billions. This corporate capture of social justice movements is particularly insidious. They exploit genuine concerns about inequality and injustice to advance their own agendas, often pitting groups against each other and dividing society along ideological lines and always along racial ones. They silence dissenting voices within these movements, labeling anyone who questions their motives as enemies of progress, or even more effectively as bigots or haters. The public-private partnerships, often operating under the banner of progress and innovation, are at the forefront of a new wave of technological advancements that threaten individual liberty. Artificial intelligence, facial recognition technology, and data collection are being deployed on an unprecedented scale, often with little oversight or regard for privacy rights. These technologies, while marketed as tools for convenience and efficiency, which indeed they are, unfortunately, also have the potential for Orwellian levels of surveillance and control. The ability to track our movements, monitor our online activity, and predict our behavior gives these entities an unacceptable level of power over our lives. This data is not just collected but analyzed, packaged, and sold to the highest bidder, often without our knowledge or consent. The erosion of privacy is always presented as a necessary trade-off for security or convenience. We're told that if we have nothing to hide, we have nothing to fear. But this argument ignores the fundamental right to privacy that is essential for a free and open society. It is in the private sphere where dissent flourishes, where individuals can explore ideas freely without fear of reprisal. The relentless push for a cashless society, often championed by these same corporate entities, further erodes our freedoms. Digital currencies, while offering potential benefits in terms of efficiency and security, also provide governments and corporations with a totalitarian level of control over our financial transactions. They can track our spending habits, freeze our accounts, and even dictate what we can and cannot buy, all in the name of combating crime or promoting responsible behavior. In an era saturated with information, it's easy to believe we're more informed than ever before. Yet, a closer look reveals a chilling truth. The very sources we rely on for news and information have become little more than a sophisticated propaganda machine. This machine shapes our perceptions, molds our opinions, and controls our understanding of the world. Its gears are greased by corporate interests, its levers pulled by powerful elites. It relies on selective omission, relentless repetition, and the demonization of dissent. We are castigated daily and told to trust the experts. It's a blunt form of mind control designed to keep the masses complacent and divided. The media's role is to shaping public opinion, not to inform. They understand the power of imagery and emotional appeals. They exploit this power using fear and outrage to manipulate public sentiment, bypassing our critical reasoning capabilities. Social media has amplified this propaganda machine. These platforms have become breeding grounds for misinformation. Algorithms prioritize sensationalized content over accuracy. The result is a society increasingly polarized and easily manipulated. Education and entertainment breeding conformity. Propaganda infiltrates education and entertainment, molding young minds to value conformity over critical thinking. Curricula indoctrinate rather than educate. History is rewritten to fit the prevailing narrative. Science is presented as unquestionable dogma. Identity politics overshadow individual merit. Entertainment shapes cultural norms, promoting the globalist agenda. Traditional values are replaced with materialism and self-indulgence. A society obsessed with desires is easily controlled. Section 1. The modern-day Emmanuel Goldstein. In George Orwell's dystopian masterpiece, Emmanuel Goldstein is the embodiment of everything the totalitarian state despises. He is the face of the resistance, the voice of dissent, the symbol of a freedom the party seeks to crush. In the age of social media and 24/7 news cycles, the parallels between Orwell's dystopian vision and our own time are becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. Donald Trump, the 45th and now amazingly the 47th President of the United States, has been demonized, vilified and subjected to a level of scorn and ridicule rarely seen in modern American politics. He is indeed polarizing, and there are plenty of things to criticize in both character and policy, but the level of media scorn and bias was absurd and far eclipsed any legitimate level of criticism. Section 2. The unpardonable sin, challenging the narrative. Trump's faults are clear, but his real transgression was challenging the established order, questioning the globalist agenda. He suggested America's interests should come first, that national sovereignty mattered. This act transformed him into a target of relentless hatred and scorn. He challenged the media's monopoly on information, exposing their bias. Using social media, he bypassed traditional gatekeepers, terrifying the establishment. He gave voice to millions of Americans who felt ignored and marginalized. Section 3. The Spectre of Trump, a Rorschach test for the nation. Trump's first presidency became a Rorschach test for the American psyche, revealing the deep divisions and anxieties that had been simmering beneath the surface for decades. It was a well-founded mistrust of the establishment. Like a well of magma, he became the vent for the volcano of resentment. To his supporters, he was a truth-teller, a disruptor, a fighter who promised to drain the swamp and restore America to its former glory. To his detractors, he was the Antichrist, Hitler, and Emmanuel Goldstein all in one, and still is. They cheered his defiance of political correctness, his willingness to challenge the status quo, his America First agenda. To his detractors, he was a dangerous demagogue, a threat to democracy, a racist, sexist, xenophobic bully who had hijacked the Republican Party and was leading the country down a dangerous path. They recoiled at his rhetoric, his policies, and his very presence in the Oval Office. This polarization, this inability to find common ground, spoke to a deeper malaise within American society. The old certainties were gone, replaced by a sense of anxiety and unease, not hope and change. The American dream seems increasingly out of reach for many, while the political system seems broken, captured by special interests, and unresponsive to the needs of ordinary citizens, and, as we are now seeing and always suspected, incredibly corrupt. Trump's presidency, for better or worse, forced these issues to the forefront. He shattered the illusion of national unity, exposing the raw nerves of a nation grappling with its identity, its values, and its place in the world. He became a mirror, reflecting back the hopes, fears, and anxieties of a nation on the brink. Section 1. Anatomy of a corrupt establishment. The forces we face are not easily categorized. They operate in the shadows, their true motives often obscured by layers of rhetoric and deception. At the apex of this corrupt hierarchy sit the lizards, as the conspiracists hilariously call them, pulling the strings of governments. These are the billionaires, the financiers, the unelected power brokers. They fund the think tanks, control the media narratives, and install their puppets in power. They run the corporations that sponsor and own the media. They have a seat at the table in Davos when the WEF meet to discuss what to do with the peons. Then come the clowns, the public faces of this corrupt system. These are the politicians, the talking heads, the celebrities who parrot the approved narratives. Next come the vampires, the activists who push radical gender theory, mandate the indoctrination of children into alternative sexual mores, the authorities and experts who push surgical mutilation of healthy children and the disruption of their endocrine system to affirm their gender when clearly it is the exact opposite. It is the denial of their gender from birth, all abetted by state legislators who seek to remove children from parents who do not affirm their delusion, and from school teachers who encourage them to change their identity. Next, the hyenas, the activist journalists, the cancel culture vultures, the enforcers, the arbiters, the diversity mafia, the climate change alarmists, the people who define reality and enforce conformity and obedience and shame any who resist woke, leftist ideology with the well-worn epithet, Accusations of racism, sexism, homophobia, fascism, transphobia, cultural appropriation, white supremacy, privilege, climate change denial, all forms of modern heresy and blasphemy. Who's left? The sheep, the regular working folk who shrink from conflict, the people who mindlessly swallow the propaganda, the ones who perhaps doubt but dare not speak up, the people who would rather surrender their autonomy and acquiesce than be accused of racism or sexism or be called out for their unearned privilege. This includes those who have been so manipulated by a media complex that weaponizes the maladaptive, taking their resentment and channeling it into predefined narratives that are used to channel conflict. The end goal being to use identity politics as a cudgel, enhancing traditional class warfare with racial division and other tribal identities, including sexual orientation. Section 2, The Persecution of Donald Trump, a case study in a weaponized justice system. The relentless persecution of Donald Trump serves as a chilling case study in the tactics employed to silence dissent and crush challenges to power. Trump faced unprecedented scrutiny and hostility. The media became a weaponized propaganda arm, churning out negative coverage. Intelligence agencies were weaponized against a duly elected president, using surveillance powers to spy on his campaign. The Steele dossier was used to obtain FISA warrants under flimsy pretexts. The Russia collusion hoax consumed the first years of Trump's presidency. Despite investigations, no evidence of collusion was found. Yet the damage was done. The narrative poisoned public discourse and trust in institutions. Even after leaving office, Trump faced frivolous lawsuits and character assassination. The US government literally accused him of fraud with no justification, based on bank loans from institutions that did their own valuations and lent him money, which was repaid with interest. They issued multi-million-dollar fines. The January 6th hearings aimed to demonize Trump and prevent his return to office. A dubious and highly corrupted rape trial devolved into a civil defamation suit backed by odious high-level Democrat donors. It all failed. He's back for better or for worse. So now what? The great pushback reclaiming our future. So what comes now? Yes, Trump is back in office, upsetting the international order. Our freedoms are still being eroded, our values are under attack, our future is at stake, but there is hope. Across the globe, a spirit of resistance is growing. The great pushback has begun. It is a movement fueled by a love of freedom. It transcends traditional political divides. This is not a battle that will be won in a single election. It requires a fundamental shift in consciousness and, above all, a re-embracing of free speech and personal liberty. The great pushback is not about violent revolution. It is about reasserting our autonomy and rejecting media programming. It is about reclaiming our sovereignty. It is about creating a future where freedom reigns. The future hangs in the balance.